all the so-called apostle misrepresented us Jewish folks. Even though he is Jewish, he misrepresented the Jewish people and the doctrines of the only scripture of that time, which is now considered the Old Testament. But it is not old for us. And he misrepresented the theology surrounding the Messiah. Everything almost he taught contradicts all of Jewish thought, or Jewish biblical doctrine, I should say. The Messiah of Judaism does not pre-exist, like he says. He doesn't create the universe, like he says. The Messiah does not do away with the law of Moses, the very law of God that God himself gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. That whole premise is so absurd, it's ridiculous. Why is it absurd? Because when the Jewish Messiah comes, he's gonna understand that every kingdom and nation has a law that they go by. Well, the Messiah is no different with his kingdom. His law shall be the law of God that God gave to Moses for the children of Israel to keep once they get into the land of Canaan, the land of milk of honey. So the Messiah, his law shall be the law of God given on Mount Sinai. So it's absurd for a guy named Paul to misrepresent the Jewish people by saying that his Messiah did away with the law. It's ridiculous. Then he has another teaching that goes, when Adam sinned by taking of the fruit in the garden, when he sinned, a sinful nature was pretty much created. And so that sinful nature is passed on through the genes to all his children and through his gene pool after that. So, where everybody needs to be quote unquote saved. That's totally absurd too, because we never taught that, ever. That's a teaching by Paul himself. What we teach, just to touch that for a minute, is when Adam and Eve sinned, they gave the first sacrifice. And so, that is why El, the God of Israel, gave them garments of skin. If you look at that, that was their offering. So their sins were forgiven. But as a consequence to their sin, they were banished from the Garden of Eden. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I can go deeper about other stuff, but I want to stick to the point of Paul here. So, the law was not done away with. The Messiah does not pre-exist. The Messiah does not come down. And the Messiah does not do away with the law and usher in some new foundation, new belief system. That's all you have to do is believe in Jesus. He died for you. This is another absurd thing. This is what really baffles me about him claiming to be a Pharisee. Throughout our history, we as a people maintained a pure monotheism. Pure, 100% pure. God has no son. There is no heavenly family. There's no Trinity, no tri-nature God, no character God, no tri-manifestation God. We simply don't believe that. So another thing is he taught God has a son when he doesn't. And then on top of that, the Messiah dies. We don't teach that. That's his teaching. He misrepresented Jewish people. The Messiah never dies. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. So that is why Jewish people as a whole, who know their own belief, reject Jesus as being the Jewish Messiah. Because from what I just told you already, you can see for yourself that Jesus didn't fulfill anything. Okay? So, anyway, I think that's a lot of things that are covered regarding Paul. And all the writings of Paul should be rejected. Outright should be rejected. He has literally no idea what he's talking about. And I have no idea if he is a real Pharisee or he just went into these foreign lands and claimed it. Because the Gentiles wouldn't know anything anyway. So, they surely didn't know Jewish scriptures. There are pagans and heathens, worship Zeus and Apollo and all that. And whoever else. So they didn't know anything. So, but it's interesting when he converted the people of Galatia to his lame theology, that the people of James, now James was a holy person. He kept the Torah long after Jesus was crucified, his brother. He kept the Torah all the way till he was murdered. Which is interesting, because his crowd went up to Galatia also, after Paul though, and all of them converted to the teachings of James, the very brother of Jesus, who was head of the whole sect. Because James was a head of the sect. It is simply a, you can see it as a sect within Judaism, denomination or whatever. And so it's interesting how the people of Galatia converted over to James. And this is where we get the letter of Galatia, because Paul is extremely mad that they converted to the James theology, which, obeying the Torah, would be the correct theology. So anyway, there's my spiel about Paul and how he misrepresented the Jewish people, all its doctrines, or much of it, which is baffling to me. And it doesn't seem, by his theology, he was ever a Pharisee. Because all Pharisees know that we believe in pure monotheism. God has no son, period. So God never sent a son. Therefore, a son was never offered to make atonement for mankind. It's just, those things are not found in the only scriptures that existed at that time, which is now called the Old Testament, which we call the Tanakh. It's just simply not supported. It's not found in there. So anyway, excuse my breathing. I'm out of shape apparently. Hit the like button and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.